Hello everyone, this presentation is entitled Syracuse, the flagship smart city and ShotSpotter, an urban future for who? This presentation is designed to critique the efficacy of Syracuse's policy decision with respect to ShotSpotter and gun violence. Many of you may not even know what ShotSpotter is and that the city of Syracuse has it. Mayor Ben Walsh cut $18.1 million from the city budget due to lost revenue because of COVID-19 and the lack of federal aid, thus impacting Syracuse Police Department's budget. This means that the city will not renew the ShotSpotter contract in the next years. In fact, the Common City Council already voted to not renew it. So, this brings about a question. If Syracuse is the supposed flagship smart city of New York, how does disinvesting in a technology that generates data which will inform policy decisions fulfill that vision? There's a lack of credibility now. Even though COVID has reduced revenue for the city of Syracuse, does pursuing the surge initiatives outlined by Mayor Ben Walsh further disenfranchise marginalized groups? Syracuse wants to be competitive and prepare itself for the new economy and the fourth industrial revolution by developing the South Side neighborhood by way of building a tech garden. We know the South Side neighborhood has low property values because of the persistence of under and disinvestment. By disinvesting in ShotSpotter in a climate where gun violence is skyrocketing, will property values decrease, further making the land cheaper to develop? Does that mean the South Side will lose more tenants and homeowners to urban development? Will the city lose more property tax revenue if ShotSpotter is removed? Gun violence will likely increase. Therefore, disinvestment in ShotSpotter will lead to further revenue losses and property taxes. The argument is that by taking away ShotSpotter, not only does this action not align with the smart city vision, it's a form of disinvestment and negatively impacts the city's revenue and, more importantly, impacts marginalized groups because gun violence and associated costs of gun violence will increase. So what is ShotSpotter and why does it matter? The definition given from the ShotSpotter website is that ShotSpotter is a patented gun detection system of sensors, algorithms, and artificial intelligence that accurately detects, locates, and alerts police to gunfire. You can see on the map on the image to the right the process that ShotSpotter goes through to dispatch an officer. ShotSpotter is deployed in stratified, marginalized, and underinvested neighborhoods in Syracuse. You can see on the image to the left a map of ShotSpotter coverage area in the south and west side neighborhoods. So disinvestment in ShotSpotter means disinvestment in these neighborhoods. What will it look like if gun violence increases, shots fired increases, gang violence increases, and ShotSpotter is not there to accurately represent the gun violence in those neighborhoods? It's not there to generate the data. We can't use that data if it's not being generated. Will resources be misallocated? Will policing be reduced? Will the rate of solving gun-related crimes decrease? Will gang membership increase? These are the questions we as a community must consider because it's not the administration and City Hall that must experience life in these neighborhoods. The point is, ShotSpotter is designed to be an extra set of ears. It helps aid police in finding evidence because it pinpoints the exact location of where a firearm was discharged through acoustic triangulation. More accurate detection means a greater likelihood of uncovering evidence such as bullet casings that can be used to match to specific models of firearms through ballistic matching. This process can be used to tie crimes to one another, especially when there is a crime pattern. For example, a shot fired, let's say in the east neighborhood, that has a specific casing, and another shot's fired in the north side. Those two, and that leaves a specific casing. If those casings match, then officers can determine a crime pattern. This is useful when trying to incriminate violent offenders that commit multiple gun-related crimes. There too exists ghost guns, which are firearms hidden in locations that can be revealed to people through a payee that discloses the location at their discretion. Often, they are hidden in fields, in abandoned buildings, and have no serial number or cannot be traced. And thus, if someone using a ghost gun was caught, they could be tied to crimes committed by other people using the same gun. And oftentimes, they are recovered because after a crime, the people that use the guns will just toss them because they're not registered and they can't tie the gun to that person. So the rate at which guns being recovered are high because of the triangulation of ShotSpotter. With the increased likelihood of guns being recovered, the increased strength of criminal cases through providing more evidence, and the innovative way ShotSpotter keeps officers safe by recording the shootings and giving officers a chance to listen to the rate of fire and identify the caliber of the bullet, ShotSpotter is a technology that makes it safer for communities and officers. In essence, ShotSpotter is a more accurate depiction of reality because our human ears cannot always pinpoint where the shots are being fired. City Hall cut it from the budget, but SPD is trying to negotiate a new contract with ShotSpotter Incorporated with the limited resources they have, because they recognize the value of this program, but apparently City Hall doesn't. If this technology goes away, what can we do? Well, we can call in shots fired, either by calling 911 or anonymously reporting it via text. We can get the message out to our community that by getting guns off the street and preventing people from obtaining illegal firearms or preventing the youth from being recruited into gangs, or by using data to show parents that this is the reality of their neighborhood through transparency and access through data, we can empower ourselves to produce knowledge that can be shared to cultivate a better urban future for ourselves, our children, and our neighborhoods. Sergeant Matthew Malinowski said, according to News Channel 9, when it comes to trying to prevent crime in the first place and solving crime, we're going to do what we've always done. So it's relying on our citizens to call 911, giving us accurate descriptions of what they see, pointing our officers in the exact locations of the shots fired. But now more than ever, if we do lose this technology, it's going to be working with our partners in the community. There's more eyes out in the community, and we're really going to need people to go ahead and make those 911 calls and get officers to the area. Even if you think somebody else has called, you should still call 911 and say where it is. So the reality is, the disinvestment by City Hall and ShotSpotter has the potential to increase gun violence. Thus, we have to step up as a community to keep our neighborhoods safe, because we don't have this technology anymore. Here we're going to talk about gun violence and statistics. We can see the two maps here that are publicly available on internet browsers. It takes some digging through Google to obtain these. But the chart to the right is a Freedom of Information Law Enforcement, otherwise known as a FOIA request, which I filed for and obtained in October from City Hall. The process to file a FOIA request is available to just about anyone, but there are protections against city governments from releasing sensitive data. Thus, if you are considering doing this, you must determine what you can and cannot obtain. This project has its limits. Because the shots fired map, the map in the middle, is from 2015. However, when we compare that map to the FOIA request, we can see that the general trend is that from 2015 to 2020, both homicides and shots fired increases. Thus, the accurate depiction of the map in the middle would have more points on the map and look more dense. Therefore, this project is not representative of reality. In actuality, it would look a lot worse. The problem is how to get the locations of where shots are being fired, which is generated by ShotSpotter. My concern is when ShotSpotter goes away, it poses the question of ownership of the data. Who owns the data? Does ShotSpotter own the data? SPD, the city, state, federal government, or should it be the public? I think it should be the public, but that's not the case. We have to go and submit FOIA requests to get this data. We have to have news reporters produce articles in to generate maps such as the one in the middle, or scholarly articles such as the one on the left to produce that gang territory map. Where does the data go? Where does it get stored? Who can access it? Is it fair to prevent the public from obtaining records and data on where exactly these shots are being fired? Does it interfere with law enforcement investigations? Certainly some of these questions can be answered, but the point is, these data are not readily available, and if we have visual representation, such as the video I'm going to be showing next, we could better inform our own decision making on where to live, to shop, to work, what transportation methods to use, where to send our children to school, etc. By increasing data access and transparency, and by maximizing the efficiency and efficacy of municipal service such as policing, Syracuse will become a smarter city. But disinvesting in ShotSpotter is not aligned with the Smart City or Syracuse Surge initiative, and will likely lead to an increase in shots fired and expanding gang territories. Here in this slide, I will show a visual representation of the correlation between income levels and several overlay maps that display the relationship between under and disinvestment areas and shots fired. The first relationship we will explore is between income and shots fired. Generally, shots fired and gun violence occur in low income and extremely poor areas. As we can see by the key from the shots fired overlay map, the red diamond points are shots fired from gangs, and the circle points are non-gang related. This indicates low-income areas are more likely to experience gun violence. When I overlay a gang territory map on top of the income and shots fired maps, we see another correlation, that being gang territories are in areas where there is a lot of shots fired and in areas of low income. In fact, when we take away the shots fired map, gang territory is only in low income and extremely poor areas. This is problematic because during 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic, homicide and shots fired cases have skyrocketed. Here we will see another correlation that suggests that when people lose their jobs and live in areas that are low income and have gang territories in those areas, they are more likely to experience gun violence. Perhaps an explanation to this is when people do not have the finances to afford basic amenities like food or childcare or even rent, they might turn to violence, gang membership, or simply just move out of these neighborhoods, which is not good for the future of the neighborhood because renter turnover rates does not give people the opportunity to take pride in their neighborhood or houses. If the city will not help these people directly, they would do it through policy decision, which disinvesting in a data-producing technology like ShotSpotter will limit the efficacy of their policies. There are informal economic activities that people do to make ends meet, which are not always safe and healthy and can be detrimental to communities and the individuals involved. The next relationship we will explore is between low-income areas, shots fired, and the coverage area ShotSpotter. We can see that the south side and west side neighborhood have many areas that are low income to extremely poor, with high concentration of gun violence and shots fired with ShotSpotter, which ShotSpotter encompasses. There are still areas in the north side and the east neighborhoods that are not covered by ShotSpotter, but still experience gang-related shootings and non-gang related shootings. When we overlay the gang territory map with the ShotSpotter map, we see most gang territories are covered within ShotSpotter. So the question becomes, if we know low-income areas are more likely to have more shots fired and gang territories in them, does taking away ShotSpotter make sense? Even if it does cost only $750,000 over the course of 3 years, does it still make sense? Is that not a form of disinvestment in a technology designed to increase the data production and the safety of our communities? ShotSpotter decreases the time it takes to get to the scene of a gun-related incident, which arguably saves lives, as in the case with Miguel Everson when his uncle shot him in the back on December 3rd, 2019. This news coverage can be found on Syracuse.com. Anyways, the ShotSpotter was crucial in pinpointing the location where the shot occurred and decreased the response time of law enforcement officers and decrease the time that it took to resolve the situation. This saved precious minutes to a life-threatening injury and possibly saved Miguel's life. By taking this technology away, we disinvest in the South Side and West Side neighborhoods. We are not certain about what the future will look like when ShotSpotter goes away, but we can predict, given the trend, that gun-related injuries and homicides will continue to increase. What this means for those of you watching is that you must get involved. Now, this flyby view of these maps, you can see the difference between green, red, and yellow. Green is obviously the wealthier areas, and all these shots fired generally occur in red and yellow areas. You can also extrapolate that in these areas, most of these shootings occur in residential areas, which can be correlated to high eviction in these areas. Also, high renter turnover rates. If we have more home ownership, people will take pride in their houses and their neighborhoods. There will be less turnover rate, less eviction rates, which could potentially lead in the long run to less violent crime, less gun violence. So here we are approaching the east side, which you can see there's some gang-related shootings, but generally everything in this flyby is occurring in low-income to extremely poor areas. Now we're heading down Erie Boulevard toward the north side, and again you can see the concentration of shots fired starts to increase the more you get into poorer neighborhoods, red being the poorest. Here we will discuss the cost associated with gun violence. As of November 18, 2020, there have been 133 shots fired with injuries. We know from previous studies 80% of victims survive, and we know a portion of those go to long-term rehabilitation programs, which cost about $96,000 per person. But let us focus on the basics. Let's underestimate and say 1/3 of the 133 people were on Medicaid. This is not accurate since almost every single shot fired with injuries happened in areas where the income was below $40,000. So that should give you an idea that a lot of these people probably have Medicaid. So on the low end, let's say hypothetically speaking, 43 people are on Medicaid, and at an average of $30,952, the total cost to hospitals is $1.33 million. If Medicaid covered at the lowest end, which is 65% of that cost, that is $865,108 would be the total cost that Medicaid covered. However, the remaining $465,827 would be charged to people that, let's face it, cannot pay this because they are already living, in subpar conditions, not to no fault of their own. And they just lost their source of income because the long-term psychological and physical effects of gun-related injuries prevents them from going back to work. And let's face it, during COVID-19, where's there left to work anyway? Therefore, as taxpayers, we give money to the federal and state government, which they use to insure Medicaid recipients. The question becomes, do we want to invest our taxes in technology that will get guns off the street or continue to pay for the medical costs associated with gun violence? It only cost the city of Syracuse $750,000 over the course of 3 years for ShotSpotter, which the city gets investment from the state. Our tax dollars are being used by the state to invest into programs such as Medicaid. Therefore, it cost the taxpayer and the state $865,000 using a predictive analysis of the lowest metric. So, reality would show a much higher cost. A more reasonable scenario to imagine is a long-term rehabilitation program to people that have been seriously injured from gun violence. We can see how if $96,000 is the average cost of one of those programs, less than 10 people in a year, nonetheless, ShotSpotter would pay for itself. I, for one, would rather have my tax dollars pay for this technology that in the long run would help get guns off the street and reduce gun violence. This video was designed to critique the decisions about ShotSpotter, to give you the knowledge on what is going on and to give you ideas that can help you keep your community safer. Not only does ShotSpotter pay for itself, it helps keep your community safer and it helps keep our officers safer. It gets unregistered guns off the streets and provides a stronger case to incriminate violent offenders. It also aligns with an urban future that produces data that can be used by city officials to make smarter decisions. By disinvesting in ShotSpotter, we disinvest in our neighborhoods. This is not a smart city decision. It is neglectful and will do more harm. My biggest concern is that all this information is known as being done on purpose to drive down property values so developers can buy the land cheaper, which would displace people in the long run. Whatever the case may be, stay engaged, stay informed, call Shots Fired In, and get involved. There is power in maps, and we can use maps to our benefit to provide a legible deliverable that the state can accept as knowledge. Thank you for listening to my presentation.